We're going to call to order this regularly scheduled City Commission meeting of the City of St. Pete Beach. Today is Tuesday, May 28th, 2024. It is 6 p.m. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Vice Mayor Lorenzen.
Here. Commissioner
Marriott. Here. Commissioner Phillips.
Here.
Commissioner Resnicki. Here. Mayor Petrella.
Here.
Have a quorum.
Do we have any amendments to the agenda as proposed, please?
I have one thing. It's not really an amendment per se, but on the minutes, I misnumbered. So there's 2 number 7s. So I corrected it on the final form, but it's not what's in the agenda. So I just wanted to make that note that the numbering has changed since what's published.
Mayor, I do have one adjustment to the agenda. I'd like to pull item 4C. Have a couple of questions that I did not get answers for, so I'd like to pull that and bring it back at a later date.
Okay.
I just wanted one item for discussion for resiliency committee, since the commission has talked about it a couple of times, just to hopefully get some direction. So just a quick discussion on that.
Anyone else? All right, at the request of the chairman of the historic board, I'd like to have a quick discussion about the next joint meeting with the historic board. And then I would also like to have a short discussion on parking, really the parking meters. Okay. May I please have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I make a motion to approve the agenda as published.
As amended?
I'm sorry, as amended.
I second.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Marriott.
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips.
Yes.
Commissioner Resnicki.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lorenzen. Sorry.
Yes.
Mayor Petrella.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any general audience comments?
Ken Cosbob.
If you please state your name and address for the record.
My name's Ken Cuspop. I live on 45th Avenue, St. Pete Beach. I'm also an employee of the city of St. Pete Beach. As an employee and also a resident, I take great pride in living and working in the same city to where I spend my life. I moved here 5 years ago after working 31 years in public utilities in the city of Columbus, Ohio, which is also where I resided, because I took a lot of pride in everything in that. We were just here for a meeting prior to this for the pay study. Waiting another 4 months I find as ridiculous. It needs to be pushed forward. I know it makes much sense to do it when the budget is going to be done, but there's ways to make adjustments for that. The pay study was started 3 years ago. It took 2 years just to get the company in here to get the questionnaires by the time the city did all the questioning and surveying of those particular companies. The guy did a very good presentation. The presentation also shows where St. Pete ranks, I should say the city of St. Pete Beach ranks, within the comparison of about 25 other municipalities within the state of Florida. We're falling below the 50 percentile of the cities, meaning there's half the cities are more than us, pay-wise, half the cities are less than us. To me, when you're talking percentiles and you're still at 50%, you're failing. 60% is just getting by. I understand there's budget concerns and so on with that. The one thing I do like that they discussed, or yourselves all discussed, is that you're going to look at each individual job and job duties when you're doing that. You're not going to take the 7.4 across the board and say this is how it's going to work, because some of the people are already paid at the wages that are found within the study to be competitive. The city, there are certain areas that have a hard time with retention. Bringing new employees in isn't as hard because I've only been here for a little over 2 years. The pay I started at and then transferred to a different position compared to somebody that came in and replaced me was almost a $10 an hour difference between those two. So there's definitely some discrepancies on the way certain things have been done. The pay study, again, I think is a great thing they're doing. It's been in the works for 3 years. Waiting another 4 months, I find to be just too long for the employees who are 10, 12, 19% below what comparative cities are. I have a funny feeling with talking to other employees. I know I'm done. I'll leave it at that. Have a good evening.
Thank you, sir.
Deb Scheckner?
Good evening. Deborah Scheckner, Bogusiega Isle in St. Pete Beach. I had been away for a while, and I will tell you that these types of development issues are going on around the world, as well as all of the United States. One particular country, they have large protests because the pristine areas of their beach are going to be destroyed by development. They have people on a hunger strike. And I will say that most islands that I visited are having those issues with the tourists and some of the slogans, and I can't repeat here. But anyway, people had sent me information about one of our attorneys who said our city is combative. Combative is aggressive, eager to fight, physical fights, what people do in war. Words like bully and hate were thrashed around. Now, at first I thought, well, maybe he was talking about the hotels because they've been a little tough on many residents, but I don't know that to be true or not. But I think it's inappropriate and unprofessional for our attorney to come forth with this plethora of words that was so negative. And I find our city and the people who come here especially always pleasant. Do people get a little aggravated? Not combative. Do people maybe raise their voice at times? Not really. I find most of the people who come to speak before you are here because they want to be heard. Not only listened to, but they want to be heard as well. And I've been coming up here for 24 years and speaking. And I would hope that perhaps an apology would be made to the residents in St. Pete Beach, because I don't think we're combative or like military. We're not eager to fight. We're not bullies. I don't feel hate towards anybody, so I don't know who he was talking about regarding hate. And we have a great city. We have a fabulous beach, great neighbors, fabulous school, love our library. We have so much going for us here. And I think most people know that not only do we live in paradise, we enjoy living in paradise. And that far surpasses any other definition of who we are. And I do really feel that saying people in the community are combative is very dangerous grounds. As your attorney that your taxpayers pay for, it was kind of, somebody said to me it was a rant as they wrote me because they sent it to me when I was away. And I was really quite surprised. I don't know where it all came from. And I hope that that's not how everyone up on the dais feels. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further audience comments? Thank you. Next, we have item 3, the consent agenda. Can I please have a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Resnicki?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lorenzen?
Yes.
Commissioner Marriott?
Yes.
Mayor Petrella?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we have item 4A, the first addendum to the interim city manager employment agreement. Wayne?
It was discussed that we should have some sort of a transition period is one of the issues. The other issue is, although I would certainly have not held the commission to it, the agreement that I have now requires a 60-day notice, but as I told the city attorney, that's not something that I would hold the city to under any circumstance. But what this amendment does is officially gives that notice, and but it also extends my time with the city for 30 days beyond the date that Fran will start, to give a transition time there. I would certainly not be in City Hall. That would be an awkward situation, but I will be working remotely every day, and if she needs me to attend meetings in person, I'll be glad to do that, or Zoom meetings or however, but for that 30 days, I'd be basically still working for the city remotely. After that, and I've given this, I've told Fran this more than once, that I'll still be there to answer calls, even come down for a meeting if I need to, at no cost to the city. I really want the transition to be smooth with Fran, and she and I have already been working together, but this addendum actually puts that 30 days in place.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Do we have any audience comments? Do we have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the first addendum to the interim city manager employment agreement.
Second?
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Resnicki?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lorenzen?
Yes.
Commissioner Marriott?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Mayor Petrella?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. We do appreciate your willingness to stick around for a little while longer.
Thank you.
Next, we have item 4B, International Association of Firefighters Pay Plan.
Evening, Jennifer McMahon, and
Jim Kilpatrick, Fire Chief.
what you have before you is a wage reopener for the fire union for 2025. We were a little ahead of time because we fell so behind last year in getting this to you all. So we met back in March and agreed upon a 3% gross wage increase, and then 3% steps between the ladders, 3.5% steps between the ladders. I think in the workshop earlier, we were talking about the inconsistencies between each step in the pay plan. So part of this in the last discussions was to try to eliminate not only some of the pay plan categories, to shorten that up a little bit, which is very similar to what we're trying to do with our regular union employees in the city, and then to get them the 3% increase. We did look at neighboring cities when we went into these negotiations. So Pasadena, Treasure Island, Madeira, who are all, if not increased quite a bit, are shortly, and Jim could speak to that. So either Jim or I can answer any questions you have for this.
Am I correct that all of our union employees, fire department employees, have already voted and approved this?
I believe this was unanimous.
Okay, thank you. This is something that we're required to do as a wage reopener in the initial contract with the union.
Correct. This is the second wage reopener within the CBA collective bargaining agreement that we needed to do. So.
Questions, comments?
Good.
Do we have any audience comments?
I'll make a
So-
motion. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll make a motion to authorize the execution of the International Firefighters IAFFF 4966 Article 24 Pay Plan Wage Reopener.
Second.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Resnicki?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lorenzen?
Yes.
Commissioner Marriott?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Mayor Petrella?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Okay, next we have item 5A ordinances, second and final reading and public hearing of ordinance 2023-10, comprehensive plan evaluation and appraisal report amendments. City Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. An ordinance of the City of St. Pete Beach, Florida, amending pursuant to sections 163.3184 and 163.3191 Florida statutes, the City of St. Pete Beach Comprehensive Plan Element 1, Citizen Input on Community Redevelopment, Element 2, Future Land Use Plan Element, Element 3, Transportation Plan Element, Element 4, Housing Plan Element, Element 5, Infrastructure Plan Element, Element 6, Coastal and Conservation, Element 7, Recreation and Open Space, Element 8, Capital Improvements, Element 9, Intergovernmental Coordination, and Element 10, Public School Facilities, striking Element 11, Future Land Use Maps, and relocating its amended content to Element 2, Future Land Use Plan Element, and creating Element 11, Private Property Rights Element, providing for codification, conflict, severability, correction of scrivener's error, construction, publication, and an effective date.
Thank you, City Clerk.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Nicole Galasso, and I'm a certified planner with Kimley Horn, and we were contracted by the city to prepare this comprehensive plan amendment, which I will be presenting here tonight. So I will be joined by my colleague, Philip DeMaria, shortly, but I'll be going over with you what the purpose of this comprehensive plan update is, the timeline of our scope and approach, the contents of the adoption package, which the Commission did vote to transmit at the first public hearing back in October, and then, of course, the proposed plan amendment overview and your next steps here tonight. So, as you all, I'm sure, reviewed in your agenda packet, the Florida statutes require that municipalities complete an evaluation and appraisal of their comprehensive plan at least once every 7 years to review consistency and compliance with state requirements. And then as well, here in Pinellas County, we have Forward Pinellas countywide rules that we also have to maintain compliance with, just like every other municipality here in the county. So in the summer of 2023, the city completed its review of the comprehensive plan, and it was determined that there were changes necessitated by changes in the state statutes as well as the countywide plan and countywide rules. And so the city sent the letter to Florida Commerce to notify that changes to the comprehensive plan would be necessary. And this amendment that we are presenting here tonight brings the city into compliance with those statutes and countywide rules changes. It does not address density, intensity, height, or other larger type of visionary types of initiatives that the city may want to take on in any future plan amendment that you would be free to initiate over your next 7-year planning cycle. So just to quickly go over what our timeline was, we were contracted by the city beginning in spring of 2020, and we went through a bit of a longer process to do that evaluation and appraisal and look at the elements that would potentially need changes. We came in front of the planning board and the commission for the first time in the fall of 21, and we went through a series of the changes that the city clerk went through in her listing, and it wasn't until spring of 23 that we that we started to prepare the data inventory and analysis, which I presented here back in April of 23, to complement the changes that were necessitated by statutory requirements. So as I mentioned, the city transmitted its letter notifying the state that there were changes necessary to the comprehensive plan, and we went forward with that process. In August of 2023, the planning board, sitting as the local planning agency, made a recommendation to the commission to transmit the proposed plan amendment, finding it consistent with the changes in statutory requirements, as well as internal consistency with the elements of the comprehensive plan that remained unchanged. And in October of 23, the commission voted to transmit the proposed plan amendment to the state land planning agency. In doing so, this initiated the state coordinated review process, which is governed by Section 163 of the Florida statutes. So when that process is initiated, it's reviewing agencies around the state, as well as Forward Pinellas, are notified that the city has initiated a plan amendment, and they review for consistency with their own rules and procedures. So we received the objections, recommendation, and comments report back from the state land planning agency in December of 23, and at that point in time, the city had 180 days from the date of receipt to hold the second public hearing, which we're holding here today, to vote whether to adopt the plan amendment. We did receive comments back from Forward Pinellas and the Southwest Florida Water Management District, which is really what we'll be going over with you today. Those were the only comments we received back from the reviewing agencies that we had to address and make changes to the proposed amendment that originally came in front of commission in fall of 23. So from there, we prepared the adoption package, and then we are here today to where you all will vote whether to adopt with changes, or not adopt the proposed amendment package. I see that my colleague Philip DeMaria is here, so he may come up to speak at some point, just so you all know. Just wanted to address that. So I'm going to quickly just go over what the requirements of the adoption package are, which are in your agenda packet tonight. What will be transmitted to the state, if you all vote to do so, are text changes to the comprehensive plan and strike-through underline format, any future land use map amendments, any data and analyses deemed appropriate by the city. As you recall, the data inventory and analysis was already transmitted to the state in October, so no additional data and analyses are required unless you all decide to do so. The executed ordinance adopting the plan amendment, the list of additional changes, which I'll go over with you here tonight, that were not reviewed by commission in the fall because they were a result of the ORC report sent to us by Forward Pinellas and the Southwest Florida Water Management District. And then any findings that you all have here tonight that were not included in the ordinance but may provide the basis for your decision here today. So to go over some of those changes that are included in the proposed plan amendment, primarily, what the proposed plan amendment addresses are statutory requirements for cities to adopt a private property statement of rights into their comprehensive plan, which is now would be element 11 of the comprehensive plan. And then also the state adopted some risk of peril of flood requirements that needed to be addressed predominantly through the coastal and conservation element, but also touches the transportation and infrastructure elements as well. So the text that you'll see here on the screen is the exact text that the Florida state statutes require of municipalities to adopt into their comprehensive plan, and is proposed to be element 11 of the plan update. In terms of resiliency, those risk of peril of flood requirements make some minor modifications to goals, objectives, and policies to address resiliency. As mentioned, it affects these three elements listed on the screen, but mostly in the coastal and conservation element. And what these policies do is that they would guide public and private investment to address sea level rise, such as some developer guidelines that meet those minimum statutory requirements, and as well as other requirements such as for the city to adopt a stormwater drainage manual and watershed management master plan, which I'm sure you all know the city has made a lot of progress on those goals, objectives, and policies already. So this is really just, you know, addressing all of the progress that you all have already made on that front. And then I mentioned that we here in Pinellas County have the forward Pinellas countywide rules that we have to be in compliance with. So the main changes in the countywide rules that the city needed to bring into their comprehensive plan to be into compliance have to do with Vision Zero, some consistency with the countywide plan map, as well as the umbrella future land use designation that all municipalities in the county are required to recognize in their future land use category land use table. So some of those Vision Zero requirements they're just meant to really prioritize multimodal safety, and they use language like the city will strive to, minimize traffic-related deaths by doing things such as prioritizing multimodal safety, following the Safe Streets Pinellas guidelines that Forward Pinellas puts out, implementing education, engineering, and best practices in planning and roadway design, which again, much of this is recognizing what you all have already done, such as working on the Gulf Boulevard Safety Study and your Downtown Complete Streets plan. So much of this is really just to bring you into compliance and recognize the progress you've already made. There were some other minor countywide plan requirements regarding vapor barriers and watering and irrigation restrictions, coastal high hazard area balancing criteria, and again, these were all just brought into the minimum standard that the countywide rules sets forth for municipalities. And Forward Pinellas did review the proposed plan amendment, and they found that the proposed changes would bring you into compliance with all of these things. So the one change that occurred with the future land use categories is, one, we had to show how your existing future land use category designations fall in to the countywide plan map designations. So again, this doesn't change your future land use designations at all. It doesn't change their densities, intensities, or any of their associated standards. All it does is show that your residential urban category falls within the countywide RLM residential low medium category. And so it just shows that where you have residential urban on your future land use map, that's consistent with where residential low medium is on the countywide plan map. And then the other change that did occur based on Forward Pinellas's comments is there's a requirement to recognize the permitted uses that are within these categories. And again, that doesn't change any of your permitted uses that you allow today. It just shows that consistency with what the countywide rules says. There were some additional changes to level of service that affected the infrastructure element. And again, many of these things just recognize what the city was already doing, such as work with the watershed management master plan, as well as the potential to look at future planning activities such as a recreational master plan. It doesn't commit you to doing that. It just says that there's potential for that in the future. So as noted, there were a few future land use map amendments that really just addressed consistency with the countywide plan map, as well as a scribbler's error. So we can delve into those if you'd like, but they were included in your agenda packet. And then finally, just to summarize those comments that we received in the ORC report, again, Forward Pinellas asked us to add those permitted land uses and acreage limitations to be consistent with the countywide rules, and they also had a few minor comments on nomenclature that we made sure were just consistent with the vocabulary that's used countywide, pardon me. And then Southwest Florida Water Management District's comments were very minor. They just asked that we update our reference to the regional water supply plan from 2015 to 2020. So we made that change in the intergovernmental coordination element. And so that brings us to next steps. So the purpose of tonight's public hearing is for you all to vote whether to adopt with changes, or not adopt these proposed amendments to the comprehensive plan. And just so you know, if adopted, I'm sure the city attorney can elaborate on this as well, the city would have 10 working days to submit the adoption package, at which point the State Land Planning Agency has 45 days to let us know if you're in compliance or not, and the determination will be based solely on the ORC report and whether in that any objections or comments were raised, which, as I mentioned, we addressed all of the comments that were raised, so we don't foresee, any issues there. Philip and I are here to answer any questions you all have. Thank you for your time and attention.
Comments, questions? Do we have any audience comments?
Yes, Mayor. Deborah Scheckner.
Good evening, Deborah Scheckner, Bogusiega Isle Drive in St. Pete Beach. I did have a question. It indicated there that there was outreach and public comments. I didn't see it addressed, with the exception of the first slide. And then again, I guess using the word strive, not must or should, it leaves a lot of leeway for each city to determine how they're going to do this. And I know this is pretty much done, every 7 years to comply with the state mostly, and some of the county rules and regulations that have changed. And I know recently many of the state has changed many issues and made big changes, so I don't know if that's going to be included now or that gets included in the next 7 years. But I really would like to know what the input of the public was on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Maybe you can answer that question.
I'm going to just flip back to the timeline really quickly. So in terms of public meetings that were held, we did come in front of the planning board as well as the commission several times since the project kickoff in June 2020, where we did receive public comment at that time. But as I mentioned, the purpose of this update was really to just bring the city into compliance with statutory requirements. So you'll notice in your proposed plan amendment package that the section currently in element 1 in the preface that captures the citizen public input remained largely unchanged. In fact, the only change was to simply describe that comment was referring to the last time the city did a more major update where it was more of a visioning effort. This effort was not intended to really touch the vision of the city, really just to bring the city into statutory compliance. So there wasn't that larger visioning effort with a series of longer public workshops that you would typically see with that, because we know that that's a goal of the city in the future to undertake that larger effort.
Thank you. So for context, this was first brought to the commission, I believe, in October for the first vote and first draft, which I voted in favor at that time. I don't think I'll be able to support it today. I will repeat what I've said on a number of occasions. With this particular firm, there appears to be a conflict of interest, because since October they've taken on additional clients that may or may not be working for or against or in opposition to the city, however it is. The challenge I have is, when we brought this to Kimley Horn, because we pointed out that it might be a conflict to work for the city and also work for developers, specifically on the comprehensive plan, right? So you're helping the city, and I understand this is just a reconciliation, but at the same time you're adding verbiage. And at this point, I personally cannot trust the verbiage that you're putting in there to be in the best interest of the city, because you've already put your personal interest, your firm's interest, ahead of the city's already. You made a decision to take initial clients, which may be in conflict with the city. We expressed this to you. And your answer to us was, well, we don't think it's a conflict. Well, The way it normally works is you go to the client and you say, client, do you perceive this to be a conflict if we take on this client? And your client answer was, yes, we perceive this to be a conflict. And so because of that, I cannot give you my support, because I cannot trust that what's in here is in our best interest when you've already put your firm's personal interest ahead of ours. And so because of that, I cannot support this. The only way I could possibly support this is having a third party review their work.
Mayor, could I ask you, what verbiage do you have conflict with, since you know, you said verbiage, so which particular one, just so that I know?
As I said, the only way for me to even go through this is to have a third party expert in planning go through this with an independent eye and say, okay, yes, this makes sense, this doesn't make sense, this over here may not be making the changes that you want. I don't know. I simply, without having an independent expert look at this, I just simply can't trust it.
I want to be able to understand this, so I want, you know, like, is it through strike-throughs? Because I need to know what was it last year, because we need to come to compliance, right? What verbiage, if it's verbiage, or what was strike-through, or what was change, that we could see if there's a conflict.
The change is
you
the
know?
conflict. They didn't have the clients that they took on before
But
October.
I guess my question is,
So
what
to
did
me
they
is we
change?
brought up to them that there might be a conflict,
Right,
right?
I get
They
it.
put their firm's interest ahead of ours, took the additional work and said, well, you may feel you have a conflict, good for you, we don't feel that way, so we're just gonna go ahead and do it our way. And so I can't trust that what's in here is in our best interest.
would it be fruitful to go through what was the change? You know, like, what was it that,
It isn't a specific verbiage change. I can't trust any of the verbiage in here. I have serious concerns with using this firm to do the comprehensive plan work for us and for other entities who may be working in opposition with the city.
Mayor, if I could, you know, I know exactly what you're talking about because I remember the conversation we had about the conflict issue. And in fact, we've tried to make some changes to our solicitation and contracting to try to make sure that that does happen, that in fact contractors come to us and say, I've been asked to be on this private project, how do you know, that kind of conversations, which I agree with you, should have happened. There have been, that being said, Ford Pinellas has reviewed this. Most importantly, the state has reviewed it. Your own planning staff has been involved all the way along this. My office has as well. And if I, or any of us, I imagine, if we felt like there was something being done that was not, would be out of the norm, I think we all would have said something. I'm not saying, I'm not trying to change your mind on any votes or anything like that, but I just want to assure you that from a legal point of view, we have to do this. You know, we kind of, every 7 years under the statute, we have to go through this, as you said, reconciliation type process. And I really don't want to see the city be put in a situation where we're off our timeline and not submitting it. But I get your point, your other, the main point.
Now, again, it's not an issue with, do we have to do it? Yes, we have to do it. In fact, it's probably past due at this point.
Yeah.
My issue is with the firm that's representing us.
I get it.
So,
I hear you loud and clear in your thoughts on that, Mayor. I concur with a lot of what the lawyer just said, and I guess because I'm retired and I used to rewrite operations manuals that were 3 inches thick with underline, strike through, and so I had the time to go through that entire document. And I know you're saying you can't find any particular fault with the document itself, more with the authors, the contractors for the document. But having read through it, it all struck pretty much everything I saw was pretty boilerplate. State has to say this, county has to say that, Swift Mud has to say this. So I don't see anything in the document that's controversial whatsoever. I understand your feelings on that, but to me, this was almost like a exercise in, I don't know what the right phrase would be, not penmanship, but striking out this, inserting that. It's just, there wasn't much meat in there. So.
Yep, that's what I saw as well. I mean, a lot of changing of things, subsection A's to I's, or changing wording of LDC to Land Development Code, is more that type of stuff.
For the record, my name is Philip DeMaria. I'm a certified planner with Kimley Horn. I would like to direct you to page 788 of your 800-page packet to the District 3 Commissioners' question of what has changed since the transmittal. There's a list of changes requested by the Department of Economic Opportunity. We have a list of those changes and the substance of those changes. One other thing I'd just like to mention, and Mayor, completely understand where you're coming from and respect your position and perspective, and also not trying to change your vote by any means. But I would like to mention too, both Nicole and I are certified planners, certified by the American Institute of Certified Planners. And our certification, we go through a rigorous process, and part of that is a code of ethics and compliance. And so I just want to assure you that either of us would lose our licensure, lose our certification, if we were to do anything below board, if you will. Thank you.
And also, like, from my understanding, we are reviewing our comprehensive plan, right? This is what we're doing in the future. So if there is a change, like you mentioned, this doesn't include height, density, and the vision of what we've been talking as a city. That's the next step that we're doing on that's not addressed in this. This is basically for compliance.
That's accurate.
I understand all of those things.
Okay, just
Yeah.
I just want to know if I'm
No,
missing something that you have. That's why I'm asking.
I'm telling you what my issue is with the messenger.
I'm ready to make a motion, Mayor, if the time is appropriate. Make a motion to approve the final reading of ordinance 2033-10.
Actually, I need you to say the word adopt. I was miswritten on your memorandum. For ordinances and resolutions, we must say adopt. So if you could rephrase your motion to say
Absolutely.
adopt ordinance
I
2023-10.
motion to adopt the final reading of ordinance 2023-10.
I'll second.
City Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Vice Mayor Lorenzen,
Approved. I mean, yes, excuse me.
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips,
Yes.
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla,
No.
motion carries 4-1.
Thank you. Next, we have resolutions. 6A, Resolution 2024-02, transmittal of comprehensive plan amendments to the Florida Department of Commerce.
A resolution of the City Commission of the City of St. Pete Beach, Florida, approving the transmittal of Comprehensive Plan Amendment 23-01ER to the Florida Department of Commerce, following final adoption pursuant to Section 163.3184, Parent 2 and Parent 4, Florida statutes, incorporating the conditions outlined herein and providing for correction of scrivener's error and an effective date.
Good evening. As the title stated, this is just to transmit the previous amendments that were discussed. There's no additional content in this resolution. It's just a motion to transmit those amendments.
Thank you, Brandon. Questions, comments? Audience comments? Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-02.
I need you to say adopt resolution.
Adopt,
please.
okay.
Thank you.
I will make a motion to adopt Resolution 2024-02.
I second.
Clerk, if you'll please do a roll call.
Commissioner Marriott?
Yes.
Commissioner Phillips?
Yes.
Commissioner Woznicki?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lorenzen?
Yes.
Mayor Petrilla?
No.
Motion carries 4-1.
Thank you, City Clerk.
You're welcome.
Next, we have items for discussion. 7A, Commissioner Woznicki.
Yes, I wanted to bring up, because we've mentioned this a couple of times on Resiliency Committee, and we kind of had, I think Matthew was sitting up here, and I'm sure, Andrew, you heard about what the commission can do if we were truly interested in having whether a committee on resiliency, because it's such a big topic. I just had, our town District 3 meeting last week, and obviously that was what we spoke about 100% of the time. And we've mentioned it a few times here on commission, but I want like a next step. Like, what can we do? How do we go about it? What do you all feel? I hate to say feel, think. But I want to be able to take some kind of action and not just keep of kind of mentioning it, and this is our only opportunity to talk about it, so.
I've mentioned before, I think it's a good idea, I guess. I'd want some help brainstorming as to what their role would be, how they would implement things, that type of thing. Maybe we can get some guidance from city manager, city attorney on that.
Do we have one of the boards that's already responsible for this area, like the planning board? Because that's essentially, it seems like that's what we're talking about, is putting together a plan, right, to address some of the issues that we have, and then some of that falls into zoning and planning. And
That's true, I think.
And then the reason I bring this up is just for context and for those who weren't around last year, because we had this exact same conversation when we were discussing reopening the comprehensive plan, and somebody, me, proposed that we have a special committee for a comprehensive plan review. And the comments were, well, we already have Board of Adjustment, Planning Board. We already have a challenging time finding individuals to serve on those boards. And now that a lot of the big developments and projects are behind us, the Planning Board would have excess capacity to be able to deal with something like this. Again, I agree with the sentiment and the general of what you're saying. Absolutely, it has to be done. It's just a matter, can we allocate the resources that we already have at our disposal, rather than creating one more committee, one more board, one more group of 5 individuals that we have to find, and rather than taking a group of individuals that's already serving in that capacity, have already said, yes, I'm willing to participate, and allow them at least, at the very least, give them a first stab at the issue, right?
I think that's a good suggestion, because, you can get too many committees.
We have 11?
I think it'd just be a matter of,
7? Well, plus all the other small ones. Yeah.
Be a matter of redefining what, or, the purpose of that committee, and you can certainly add that to their list of things they're responsible for giving recommendations to the city. So I think it's a great idea.
Mayor, the legal authority is there. It's the last part of the scope and powers. It does say perform such other duties as may be assigned by the city commission or required by ordinance. So there's like a catch-all there. If you feel like the planning board's a good place to start, you have legal authority to do that.
City Manager, do you see anything in the future from the city staff perspective that would be a good fit for something like this?
Well, I think,
or help out?
I think we would make that decision once we hear what comes out of that committee, whether we need a staff position or a consultant position or a shared position or something like that. I think once we see what we want to try to do, a plan, and we'd have to make that decision, well, what do we need staff-wise to implement it?
I'm kind of going along with the mayor's thoughts on this one. I think, I don't know if we need a whole nother committee, because I do have trouble filling some of the slots that we have already. So I think maybe the planning board is a good place to have them take that into consideration. Or
Is this one that we're having a workshop with them as well, with the planning board? I know we have some like the historic board. So is this something that we should do, is be able to meet with them together so that we could say, this is something that we want to add? Because I think we said, well, what do you think? Or, qualifications, is there some an added, I mean, I don't know, what they, I hate to say what they feel, but what they think.
I think it's more a matter of
Or direction.
providing them direction, saying, here's, as a commission, this is what we'd like to do. This is a project that we would like you to tackle over the next 6 months. Come back with a proposal, right? I think that'd also be something that, you know, as we talk about, you know, the new city manager starting in less than 2 months here, you know, as we talk with Fran about, you know, what are the priorities for the first 6 to 12 months, you know, if the commission feels that this would be one of those priorities, that'll be something that we can, you know, let the city manager say, okay, let's work together with the planning board, allocate staff if necessary, or find out if we do need to allocate. But so I think the first step is for us to give the planning board direction and says, okay, here's the scope of what we would like you to take a look at. You know, do what research you deem necessary, come back with a proposal. And maybe at that point, we can do a joint workshop with them. I think the first step is just to give them some direction as to what to do or what to look into or how to approach this. So I think what we need is more clarity from the commission as to what do we want them to do.
And so where do we do that? Do we do that in a workshop? Do we do that at this meeting? Because this is just a discussion, right? So do we set time aside to talk about what's the direction we want? You mentioned comprehensive plan. So is that a direction we want them also to be reviewing, especially that we're going to be doing this in the near future? So is that a goal or objective of the planning board? So I guess my thing is, where do we do this? Do we do it now? I mean, not now.
No,
We want to
I'm saying we
prepare
can-
for it, but I'm saying, where do we do it?
No, I think we just put it on the agenda for one of the upcoming commission meetings, right? Whether it's a discussion item or an action item or however we want to do it.
Yeah, and you can also ask staff and all of us to like give recommendations on possible ways, because for me, I know through the various organizations that I'm in, some cities are further along in studying resiliency than other cities, and some cities have gone ahead and done a lot more in their comprehensive plan with resiliency than other cities. So maybe collecting some of that information, maybe from Florida APA, American Planning Association, things like that. There's lots of. It would be. I think one thing would be nice to see what other cities are doing and where they're putting that at. So we could come back to you with, if you put it on an agenda, we can come back to you with some potential structure on and instructions on what to give to the planning board, because you really do want to define what they do, their scope.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. I mean, I don't think we're having to reinvent the wheel here, because there are a lot of cities that have already started those processes, and we can see which ones have been working, which ones have been a good way, and there's a lot of information out there. So as well as y'all could, put your thoughts together as what's important to you in that area, and we could come together and have it on an agenda for either action, or if we needed an action or discussion item. I think that's the way to go.
I would like that.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'd like to get even more specific on the topic. I mean, what are we talking about? We're talking about specific neighborhoods flooding on St. Pete Beach.
I mean, overall, the city, the more, obviously, you talk to more residents outside of, like, say, my neighborhood.
Right. There's other areas that have gotten
every
worse.
district,
Yeah.
right. At a different degree, but you got to plan for it, right? It's almost like, we hear Public Works talk about when you pave a road, it's by whatever the number is, right? Who's at the priority, right? Or we got to plan for it. I don't want to give the answers, but we need to start planning. How do we address it citywide? We're all on the barrier island, right? So some are affected a little bit more on storms, but we've got to plan for it.
Well, and I think it seems like there's some benefit to going about planning and then implementation in a very coordinated fashion when you start talking about things like raising seawalls and flood prevention. That doing piecemeal projects scattered around the city is not necessarily the most efficient way to go about it, and so having some method to be able to create a process for how to do things in a more orchestrated fashion that might be more beneficial and potentially more cost effective is probably well worth doing. And so I think that's in my mind anyway, that would be kind of the direction we would be looking. And I agree that the planning board is probably a good place to start. I think, like Commissioner Lorenzen said, finding more people to sit on another board and all of that could be prohibitively difficult. And so I think if we can start there, and then I think it's something we all need to keep in mind going into budget season as well, because certainly where we put money determines our priorities. So
Absolutely. Okay.
Okay, so we can put this on the agenda for one of the upcoming meetings.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Mayor, I did get a comment card, and I always ask you guys if you want to take it on discussion items. It's up to you.
A comment on this subject? I'm always happy to hear if everyone else is in agreement.
Yes.
Yes.
Kathy Garcha.
If you'll please state your name and address for the record.
Kathy Garshaw, Don Cesar neighborhood. I really appreciate that you're having the conversation and that you're exploring the options. I don't know about all of you. I know we all live here, so it does feel like a little bit of Groundhog Day, though, I guess, because I think you all can listen to your same meeting in June of 2023. I haven't even lived here that long, but you made motions to move forward on getting things out to homeowners around the seawall. So I'm all for not getting another committee, but I don't know where there's accountability to actually implement things. And if there's some type of oversight, because I think every year you all put a great budget and approve it. There's laundry lists of things, seawall rehabilitation. Some of these things are happening, but I don't know where or how we can put real teeth into actioning these out. I think we're understaffed, under-resourced to do even what it is. We're putting it on paper. But I guess I just say, how do you enlist people who have a passion for this, who maybe have capabilities to work on this, maybe they're excellent program managers on this, don't have the city's talent, but maybe there's a way to tap into things that could allow us to move this from a conversation to action differently, whether you call it a committee or a task team or something. I appreciate you saying 6 months, because all I can think, because I do sit on a board, that we can't even talk to each other unless, of course, then you call another meeting, which I think also becomes difficult. So I just ask that we put this in a different light, because it's probably the place you have most of your money sitting there, but probably not getting spent. And it's impacting us pretty severely now. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have item 7B. I had a conversation with the chairman of the Historic Preservation Board, and this is a request from the chairman and the chairman alone, since he obviously can't talk to the other board members. And so I will just simply convey the conversation that we had. He is my appointee, so, but he was also appointed by the previous mayor. So that should tell you of my thoughts on his qualifications. His request was that we postpone the joint workshop that we had scheduled. Was it scheduled, or we just?
It was not scheduled. I just put out the dates, and then I was going to do that, and he called me, and I was like, oh.
Yeah, his request was that we wait until after the August elections to schedule that meeting, so that he has full confidence that whoever will be making the decision will be around for a while. So I thought I would convey that. I'm in agreement with him, but it's not a one-person decision.
I don't have any problem with that. I think it's totally fine. I mean, after the August elections, those people will potentially only be there for 6 more months, right? Because those seats get elected again next March. But if the if that's what, I mean, I don't have any problem with it at all.
And his other concern was, again, don't take any offense to it, Commissioner Lorenzen, but you will be out for most of the summer, and he wanted to have a full commission. That was, and again, I don't necessarily disagree with that sentiment.
No offense taken.
But we hadn't scheduled it, right? So there's no...
No, we had discussed scheduling it, and we did the poll thing, and so, yes.
I was like, I'll pause until this.
Anyway, I figured I would convey that message. So if we're in agreement, then we'll schedule it sometime after.
Yeah, I'll wait until the new
September.
ones are sworn in. Yeah, and then I'll put out a new doodle poll to everybody.
Cool. Sounds good. All right, next item, 7C. Jennifer, are you still here? Yes. Do you remember when I think we updated the parking meter ordinance in September, I believe it was. It was right about budget season, so it was either September or October, and one of the discussions that we had then is because we did a not insignificant raise to the parking meters at the hourly rate. And then I've also had a few conversations with some of the business owners, particularly off of, bless you, particularly off of 8th and Paso Grill. So the conversation at the time, so it's two-part conversation. One is, can we get a report on what the revenue numbers have looked like for the last 6 months, now that we've had a full 6 months, especially through the height of season, to see if there has been an impact in, are we having lower capacity, higher capacity? Are we seeing a drop off in the number of cars, or is it just at 100% capacity? The feeling, and I'm using feelings because I don't have data, but the feeling that I have when I go down to Paso Grill, which is quite frequently, and the feeling and what I'm hearing from the residents is that it really hasn't abated much, so that the congestion and traffic with the cars circling around on the weekends, it really hasn't gotten any better. So one of the conversations that we had last year at that rate increase was, well, let's review it 6 months' time, and then, if we're not seeing any decrease in the number of users, do we propose another rate increase, right? And then the second component to that was, and this is the conversation with the business owners in, especially again off of 8th and on Paso Grill Way. Their concern was, since all of Paso Grill we charge the same. So we charge an hourly rate, which is different on the weekends and holidays, and it's also different where we charge a daily rate on special days, right?
Holidays.
Holidays, yeah. And their concern was that they're losing potential customers because the meters that are close to 8th charge that $25 or $30 rate, whatever it is. So they may only come, I think 15th might be impacted, or 9th might be impacted as well by that. And so they felt that, maybe we should look at making an adjustment. I know we had a lot of data last time about whether we charge hourly or a daily rate, what the numbers look like. But the business owners specifically asked if we could maybe relook at that for those couple of blocks. Because if somebody's coming in to go shopping, it doesn't make sense for them to pay $25 in parking for half an hour,
We can provide those numbers. I will probably have a section that's focusing on occupancy because we lost a lot of metered spaces with the seawall construction in Paso Grill.
Certainly.
So our revenue will have been impacted by that. So we'll have to come up with the right number so it really shows, I think, the occupancy and when it's full. And then the weekend numbers. I mean, I've talked with a lot of the businesses there too, just because of the construction and the meters that were taken away, and we try to work through some of those issues with them. So it's a juggling act for sure. And I hear the same things. It's a little crazy down there. I think it's difficult. Cars are parking in spaces that are not spaces. I think we saw a car parked in Paso Grill Park on the grass in the middle of the park. So there needs to be better yellow paint to where you can't park and things of that nature. I think our enforcement's doing a good job. We did add additional ones when we did increase that hourly, if you remember correctly, and they just work the weekends, and I think that has shot up a number of our tickets. So I think that also I want to include so it doesn't look like we're not doing the enforcement. So we can put that all together
Great.
If not by the 11th, we can provide it on the 25th meeting, if that's okay, to give us time to put that.
I think 25th would be great.
Okay,
Yeah,
no problem.
And if I might add, I think we also made some concessions for the same property, our business owners, to put in, like, they could block off a certain amount of spots on 9th Avenue to help them out. I
Yeah.
don't know if that's still in force, but, so.
Yeah, well, and we've got a couple of things that we're working through that, so we're trying to work with everybody, the businesses down there. I know it's very difficult, and then they're very concerned about the renourishment that's going to be happening and the impact closing part of the beach down. And do we close the parking in front of the area of the beach that's closed, which we did the last project that the county did. So those still are questions that we need to work through. So.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, I think maybe after the summer, I think one of the things that I'll probably bring to the commission for discussion is just that I think in general we need maybe a review of a citywide parking, because it's not just an issue in Paso Grill, it's an issue in District 1, it's an issue on 46th, it's an issue in almost every district. If you're in Upland Park, where it's street parking and it's just a free-for-all on the weekends, like Jennifer said, people will just park anywhere. You've got mail not being delivered to some people because their mailboxes are blocked. I see it with my neighbors who are closer in on 59th. You know, we were driving through there yesterday, and everywhere. I mean, it was just curbs. There was no hydrants. Nobody was paying attention to anything. So I think one of the things that is going to be, I think, a large project would be just a citywide review of, you know, whether we have permit parking, residence parking, parking meters, and so on. I think that would be something worthwhile tackling, especially as we're looking at increased capacity with, you know, 4,500 units being built just on either side of the Bay, you know, Bridge. I think we're just going to see an increase in the weekend traffic that we'll have. And so I think for the sanity of our residents, we'll need to tackle these issues soon.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea, and that's what I was actually going to bring up. You know, some of the streets in my district, and I've noticed in District 3 as well, just with, it seems like a double-edged sword of the streets that have no parking signs. I've heard complaints from residents of their guests visiting their house getting tickets, which I spoke with Jennifer about, and there's a solution on that. But then also on streets like 59th, there's some no parking signs like in the front of the neighborhoods, but not in the back. So guests visiting the beach are now going all the way in the back of the neighborhood to park. But, you know, we don't want that mistaken for people who are visiting residents' homes. So yeah, I think that's a good idea.
All right, next we have staff reports. City Clerk.
Yes, so we're having the joint workshop with the Beach Stewardship Committee and you all next Tuesday, the June 4th at 1 o'clock in the chambers. I did have a request about public comment. It is an hour-and-a-half meeting, and I don't advocate, and we're not typically taking live comment for workshops, and you all are aware of that. But I did tell the person that I would ask, and I brought forward a copy of what we did for the joint workshop with the planning board and how I put information out to the public of how they could submit written comments and by a certain time frame, like it was 24 hours for this instance, it was 24 hours before the meeting. So I said to them I would ask if you guys want to do that again. Also, for this specific meeting, I created a PRR, a public records request number, in our portal, so it's searchable, to include all prior public comments for all of the meetings since this began, and then any non-staff presentations, because staff presentations are going to be available in the agenda packets, or you can watch the video and see it. So I didn't put those in there, but I will also put that on the agenda that I will be publishing tomorrow. So I just really need to know from you about public comment, please.
I think if we stay consistent, that'll be great.
Okay, I'll do the same thing. That's fine.
If we receive emails or voicemails or anything else,
yeah,
we can certainly.
Okay, I'll put that on the agenda like I did last time then.
I mean, if we had noticed sooner, then we could have changed the time, allow for more time. But since we have a limited amount of time, and so far I haven't been to a single beach meeting that hasn't run over time.
Yeah, well, we can dream, right? We can set goals and strive for them.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And then the last thing I have is I handed out this to you all. It's a black and white copy. It's from the Florida League of Cities. They sent me a booklet about their city government week. In the last few years since I've been here, we've like known last minute, so it takes some time to put forward any type of activity or public, enticement. So I took the liberty of making a copy of a few things that I thought were doable, and I wanted to know if you all wanted me to work with the city manager's office to kind of do something. Like the first thing was a community outreach. They did, City of Longwood did a bingo game. Then they only spent $160, and then and then the other thing I thought was pretty cool was an essay contest that they did at their local school for kids. They wrote, like, if you were mayor for a day, what would that look like? And, like, I think it was 5th graders, and they got first, second, and third got like candy and a gift card, which I thought was kind of cute. And they came to a commission meeting and were recognized. So those were just a couple of things that I felt were pretty feasible and low staff time involvement and low cost. So if you want to tell me your thoughts on that, I would appreciate it. Yes.
I don't think we've all had a chance to read through it yet, since we just got it. Can we get back to you on the 11th?
Yes. How about you tell me on the 4th?
How about in general, I absolutely agree with the sentiment.
Okay.
But I think what you're talking about are just very low impact, and high reward.
Yes.
Ideas. So generally, yes, absolutely.
Okay, well, I'll expect your feedback on June 11th. I'm going to hold you to it.
All right.
Okay. That's all I have.
I think it's a good idea.
City manager?
Yes, we do need to schedule a budget workshop. I would like to do it the second week of June. We do have a regular meeting on June the 11th, but I was looking at either Wednesday the 12th or Thursday the 13th of June, like a 4 p.m. meeting if possible.
So question on that, Wayne, this would just be part 1 per se?
It would depend on how late y'all want to work that night, but I would think this would be part 1. Yes, sir. Typically, I don't think we could get through the entire budget, especially with questions that I'm sure y'all will have, in the time that we would want to spend. But I would like to plan on spending a good amount of time on that first meeting, because we do need some direction from the commission on priorities, and we want to show the commission where we are. We'll have some bottom line numbers at that point as far as where we think we're ending up, whether we need to talk about ad valorem or any other enterprise fund revenue changes. So I would like to schedule, or at least plan on 3 or 4 hours at that meeting, and we could stop at any time, obviously, but it will take more than that one meeting. Yes, sir. But it's important that we get it done in this timeline in order to get all the adjustments we need to be made. We'll be getting our assessment roll, or the estimated tax roll from the county on July 1, so we don't want to wait till then. We want to have pretty much everything done as far as a preliminary, so then we can make adjustments then once we know what those numbers will be. So if the 12th or 13th works for everyone, I'd like to do one of those days.
Yeah, I'd be in favor of doing multiple meetings of a shorter term, and when I say shorter, I mean 3-4 hours, as opposed to one 8, 10, 12-hour meeting.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of commissions that like to try to get it over with, and they'll meet at 8 o'clock on a Saturday and go till 8 o'clock, but that's very difficult on everyone. So I would think, I would think we could get probably the direction we need at this point in 3 or 4 hours. So that's why I was thinking, one of those days meeting at 4 o'clock would give us the direction we need at that point in time.
So I have a hard stop at 6 PM on the 12th, so it'd be a maximum 2 hours.
How about the
I don't, on the 13th, I don't have any.
So does the 13th work for everyone?
I got the easiest schedule, yes, for me.
Okay.
Yeah, 13.
So roughly, we would say from like 4 to 8 o'clock.
Yeah, I would say, 4 to 8, that'd be a good starting point, yes, sir.
Is it necessary to do one on Wednesday for 2 hours, or you think just start with the 14th?
I think
Or start with the
let's- I think
13th, rather?
Let's just do the 13th, start at 4 on the 13th, and then we'll see where we are at that point, and we will need to schedule another at some point, but I think we can get what we need at that point in that 3 or 4 hours.
Okay.
Okay, so 4 PM on June the 13th.
Yes.
Great.
Sounds
Thank you all. Thank you on that. The only other thing I have, and Mayor, you and I talked about, is speaking with Fran. She's very excited about being here. She and I actually started 2 or 3 days after y'all made a decision to hire her. She and I set up a standing weekly meeting over the phone where we talk at least once a week, and we've been swapping other information. I've been sending her documents that she's interested in looking at right now. She gets all of our agendas for all of our meetings already. But like I said, she and I talk every week about issues that we know or we've known we've been going through, any new issues that are coming up. So we're, she's very, she really wants to get involved as quickly as possible. So those are good meetings I'm having with her every week to keep her updated so she can hit the ground running when she gets here.
Thank you, Wayne.
Yes, sir.
City Attorney?
Nothing to report.
Thank you. District 4?
I'm sorry, I was thinking about something else. So I appreciate the city manager moving item 4C back to another date, because I think we got a little bit of homework to do on that one for sure. I'd like to, in advance, pass kudos to the city staff. We have a big day tomorrow. 9 a.m. is the Big C breakfast. Barrier Island Government Council, I sit in on that for the mayor. But it's our turn to host that over at the community center, so they got to get that ready and then get it ready at 9 o'clock. I'm sorry, at 6 p.m. tomorrow for the boat ramp town hall. So big day tomorrow for the staff. Appreciate all the work you're doing on that. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. District 3?
I just wanted to thank the staff for the district town hall meeting last week, for putting that together, and for all the residents who participated at that meeting. And also, I was able to go to the Tourism Week event that I had the opportunity to be with staff also at a table, which was kind of nice because we don't always get the opportunity to just kind of enjoy a little afternoon. And I wanted to thank the chamber also for hosting the event, but to thank the staff again for the time.
Thank you. District 2?
Yeah, I wanted to also thank Wayne and city staff regarding the consent item C regarding 3 polls that were negatively impacting 2 businesses in my district and 1 outside my district in District 1. So thanks for getting that taken care of. And then yesterday, I attended the Memorial Day event at American Legion, Post 305. It was impactful reflection personally, and would encourage others to go to that in the future.
Thank you. District 1?
So I had the opportunity to go to the beach a few days over the holiday weekend, and though it was quite busy, and certainly there were a lot of cars, and the parking lots were full, and lots of people looking for parking, it seemed like it was also just a really nice weekend at the beach for a lot of people. And I was at the beach late yesterday evening after sunset, and I think it was probably not even much of a mess left over, and people seemed to really be behaving themselves all weekend. And so I think it was a fantastic holiday weekend at the beach, and now we get it back to ourselves for a little while, right? So so that's all I have to say.
Yep. Yeah, that was in great part, thanks to the sheriff. I know I've had a few conversations with him, and they've really done an excellent job over the last few holiday weekends. It's nothing like just having a nice show of presence.
Yeah.
Right? Haven't seen the usual issues on Gulf Boulevard besides traffic. But just having the sheriff out there, having the cruisers out there, just being visible and present, I certainly contribute a lot to just keeping things nice and calm. So I certainly appreciate their efforts on that. All right, thank you everyone for coming. We are adjourned.